studied Ayurveda. Oh, I practice Vedic astrology, and I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner as well, and I have my yoga teacher training. So when we look at these three sister sciences, they say a student of one is a student of the other oftentimes, as they all work together to support us in understanding what we're doing here on this planet. And I really came to astrology as a teenager or preteen. I remember I found a book which turned out to be an ephemeris. It was all tattered and torn up, and I remember when I found it, I remember thinking, this is gold. I looked at it and it was a bunch of numbers. I'll show you my current version, which is supposed to be much bigger than this, but these get a lot of usage when you're an astrologer. And when I found that when I was about 12 or 13, back in like 1987, I just remember thinking, like, this holds keys for me. I don't know what it is yet, but I know it's going to change my life. And I dove into doing everybody's charts I knew at the time. I have almost like a photographic memory for charts. That's like the only thing that I have a photographic memory for. So I can remember a chart and a birth date and time and stuff. It's kind of strange. So I've been studying that really to help me understand what makes people tick, right? Why are we here? What are we doing? And and that was with Western astrology in the beginning till Vedic astrology, Jyotish, it's called, the science of light, was sort of revealed to me through a, a meeting with a friend who said that he had to go off and get his Vedic chart read. And I was like, wait, what? What is this? And so then I had a reading with this teacher. His name is Jade. He told me in my session he would teach me, because I guess I had the placements to doing this. And at that point too, or I should say before that, I had been practicing yoga. I went to NYU, and so I was doing yoga all the time there. And that really resonated with me. I always liked feng shui. So there's a Vastu version in Ayurveda, in the Vedic system. I love to cook. And so we have Ayurveda is really beautiful for helping us figure out what we should eat and when. I've always been into health and wellness. And so when I sort of discovered Vedic astrology, it was like a whole world was opened up to me that I had been waiting for. And I was just so grateful that this system had been revealed to me. A few years after that, that was when I was maybe 25 or so. So 25 years ago. So after that, I had this intense draw to go to India, which I had had since I was like 7. It was one of those things, if you're called to go to India, you have to go to India. Not on vacation, right? It's like personal development and like a journey. And so I was called to go to India. It was 2005. I went, I had a massively transformative experience. I was by myself. And I just felt held. I remember feeling so held by India. It was just incredible. And I had some Ayurvedic, like a mini panchakarma done, an Ayurvedic, detoxification, rejuvenation done for me. And that changed my life. When I came back to New York City, where I had been living, I remember I got to work. I was working for an international women's rights program, and we were at the UN when I got back to work. And I remember going into the UN and being like, I got somebody else's job. Like, I need to leave this and go on my path to Ayurveda and yoga and Jyotish, because that is what I am meant to do. And about 2 months later, I applied to the Ayurvedic Institute with Dr. Vasant Lad in New Mexico. A few months later, I packed up my life in New York City, where I'd been living since my, college, and moved cross country. And so having studied Ayurveda, or studying Ayurveda, really made it all feel complete. It made me feel like these systems all go together. This is such an important, these sciences are so important for us to help us understand where we are in life. The beauty that I find with Vedic astrology especially is it helps you to calm your mind. It helps you to understand where you are in space and time, right? Where you are in your own birth chart, where the planets are in the sky at the moment, and how they're affecting us. And the beauty of these sister sciences, which Jennifer will talk about Ayurveda in a moment, is they all work together to harmonize us in the world, because there's always going to be some sort of imbalance going on. We've never arrived, right? We're always in this place of change and flux and adjusting. And so having these tools and these remedies, which we'll talk about quite a bit today, I feel like are just some of the most important and beautiful gifts that we can have in this world, so that we do know how to navigate our own cosmic waters, and we do know how to navigate sort of the world that we're in, you know, because we're always in this place of like trying to come to a place of connection, but we have to sort of connect with ourselves first. And that's where yoga comes in, being yoga meaning union, right? The Vedic science for spirituality, right? We get into our physical bodies, connect our breath to our movement, so that we can open up the channels, these subtle channels too in our bodies, so that we can receive information, connect our individual consciousness with universal consciousness, right? And so this is where having that yogic perspective is really important too. Whatever you can do, right? Because it's always for whom and when we're talking about these beautiful Vedic systems. I always think of it as it's movement towards stillness, right? We're moving so that we can get the wiggles out, get the kinks out, as Dr. Ladd says, get the issues out of the tissues, so then we can sit quietly in meditation and receive the inspiration and guidance that we're meant to receive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you mentioned yoga as keeping the body channels clear and clean. And this is Ayurveda's perspective on yoga, that the wonderful and important aspect of yoga is this stretching and lengthening of the body, which allows the metabolic waste to start to dislodge and move through the channels. So you have this feeling when you're done a yoga practice, you have this feeling of cleanliness in your body. You have this feeling of clarity, of calmness, of more movement having occurred. And yeah, so it's all about balance, and each of us is a unique individual in Ayurveda. Each of us has a unique body type, which we are born with, and then as we go through life, as we experience different stressors in life and ups and downs and challenges, and as we go through each year, each season, we can become imbalanced in our body through all of these things that we experience in life, through poor eating, poor diet, or lack of exercise, or any number of things. An imbalance can occur. And so the goal with Ayurveda is to bring the body back to a state of balance, which is health. So Ayurveda is the traditional medical system of India, and it is probably the oldest medical system on the planet. It's approximately 4,000 to 5,000 years old, maybe even older. It's completely holistic, and it utilizes diet and lifestyle adjustments, Ayurvedic supplements, Ayurvedic cleanses, sometimes body therapies, things that are done perhaps at home, and perhaps with a technician or with a massage therapist. So there's a variety of different modalities that are used to help bring the body back to that state of balance. Yeah, so that is Ayurveda.
And so one of the things I think when you were talking about the possible ways of becoming imbalanced, of course, I'm like, and the planets.
And the
The planets can do it to us too. And as we've been experiencing for the past few months, but especially this week, it's been a little bit chaotic in the sky. Have you been feeling it? I mean, if you yeah.
I have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of been nonstop. And so this is where, when we have these different tools with Ayurveda, with yoga, with Jyotish Vedic astrology, the eyes of the Vedas, right? Like when we have these tools to guide us and support us and say, okay, this is what's happening in the sky right now. This is how you can support yourself, right? Just tune into this area of your life and support that system, or do this, whatever it may be, to support you better, to navigate this time that we're in. So what I'm thinking of doing is sort of doing a quick recap of where we've been the last few months, and especially the last few weeks, if that's okay, to sort of set the stage for where we are going, because we're making a big change right now. And there have big changes in the sky since the winter last year. And I've been saying to people, we're not out of the woods yet. We have to wait till the spring, till May, basically, for things to really start to feel a little lighter, a little easier. So one of the things, I think Jennifer can talk about this too, one of the things that's been going on, and I'll show you in a moment the chart, one of the things that's been going on is we've had a cluster of planets really in 3 signs. So everything's been in this gridlock intensity, mostly in air and fire signs. That usually doesn't happen. And so air and fire, from an Ayurvedic perspective, are connected to Vata and Pitta. And so, and I'll give Jennifer a chance in 1 second to talk about this, but that can create a lot of imbalance, especially during the winter season. So
Yeah, so in wintertime, there is a seasonal routine that we should be following. And in winter, we have this cold weather, which is a wonderful support for the body. So the cold weather helps increase our Agni, our metabolism. It provides some protection for us. It gives the body strength so that we can have a little bit heavier foods, and we have the power to digest these foods. And yeah, and we have the cooling support of the air around us. And because of this, it's important to maintain a regular daily routine, a regular meal schedule, same time of day, having meals every day. And when we don't do these things, imbalances can occur. So winter is really a very nourishing time for the body. It is the strongest time of the year, as opposed to summer, which is as the time when our bodies are at their weakest. Because we have so much depletion going on because of the presence of the sun. Yeah. So winter, we are strong, we are well nourished, but as Alexia is telling us, there's something very different happening. So
yeah, so what's been happening, I wonder if I can share my screen. And just make sure if you guys can mute yourselves, please. Let me share my screen to show you, just so you can visually see, you don't have to understand it, just so you can visually see what's been going on in the sky. So I'm going to share the chart. And so this is a Vedic chart, a Jyotish chart. And you can see, don't look at the black, these are mathematical points in the sky for the most part. Let's look at this cluster of planets here. 1, 2, 3 signs. Think of it like, I've been thinking of it like gridlock, right? Like you're sitting in your car and you're like, I just want to get going. And there's nowhere to go because you're so close to everybody else. And one planet is, all these planets are like, I want to be first. I want to be first. And so there's been this like push-pull energy that's been happening. And it can create a lot of frustration, a lot of as above, so below, right? There's frustration in the sky, there's frustration within us. And so this is kind of where we're coming from, is this place of kind of planetary congestion. And and in addition to that, we've had the moon kind of off on its own for almost a half the month, from a third to half of the month for the last like month, and until, I believe it's going to be until August. We're going to have the moon off on its own at certain points. I'll give us the dates for May, but that's called an unsupported moon. And so it can make you feel lonely. It can make you feel like nobody gets you or hears you, or you're just kind of isolated. So there's been this cluster of intensity where it's like people have been saying they know there's a new path ahead and they just can't get the wheels to hit the ground. Does that resonate? So there's this whole idea of like, I know I've got to do something. I know there's a new path. I know something. And we're going to talk about that too. But this whole idea of really yearning and wanting for something to manifest, but the wheels just haven't hit the ground yet. And that's where, when we get to this Jupiter movement that we'll talk about later on in our call, that's going to really help us get things grounded and moving forward. One of the things that I want to mention is that Mars, the planet of Mars, is kind of a big player this year, but especially this month. And the last 5 weeks, it was sitting with Saturn. Now, Mars is about our energy, our courage, our motivation, our muscles. In Ayurveda, it's mam sadatu. So it's what gets us moving, right? It gets us going. And I always say, wherever Mars goes, our attention goes, whether we like it or not. And so it's always best to work with Mars and look at Mars and say, okay, Mars, what do you want from me? And do it. Because it's very, it can be sort of chaotic and cause some challenges if we don't actually work with it in that way. Does that make sense? So one of the things that was going on with Mars, which was kind of a blessing in disguise for where we're going now, is Mars was over here sitting with Saturn. Saturn and Mars are pretty opposite energies. Mars is go, go, go. Saturn is whoa, 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 right? So this is like 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake energy. Mars is the gas, Saturn is the brake. They were together for the last 5 weeks. And so the idea of that is Saturn wants us to dot our I's, cross our T's, make sure we have a plan, make sure we know what we're doing, make sure we have everything organized so that Saturn can hand it off to Mars and say, okay, Mars, go, do your thing, get things done now. And so one of the things that I want to say before we move forward is if you feel like you have not done that in the last month, it's a really great moment now and over the next week to really try to get some of your ideas on paper, out of your head, on paper, so that you can see what the path is that's presenting to you. We've got prompts, different prompts you can journal about that should help you with this, but that's one of the blessings that Mars and Saturn were giving us. Now Mars moved just the other day for the next 5 weeks. For the month of May, we have Mars, action-oriented, go, go, go Mars, very Pitta in nature, right? Very much like fire, running, going. It's now sitting with Rahu, the north node of the moon. Mercury is there too, which has been definitely pulling some shenanigans because it was retrograde. But Mars is now sitting with Rahu. And so that Mars-Rahu energy, Mars is action and energy and attention and focus, right? Mars is drive. Mars is courage. Mars just wants to get things done and go for it. Sometimes Mars doesn't care if it kicks up a fuss, if it causes problems. Mars just wants action. So we have to put some blinders on it and direct it. Now, where it's sitting now for the next month, it's sitting with Rahu, the north node of the moon. This is also a very intense energetic in that I'll talk about how it is when it comes together with Mars. When they come together, they're almost like, I think of them as like little rascals. Like the two of them are very, they have these ideas of things they want to do and they just want to go for it and get it done. It's like, you know, giving your kid the car and being like, go have fun. And it's like, no, they shouldn't do that. They need direction. They need an adult there. They need to tell them where to go and what to do. And so with this energy that we have, especially for the next month, part of this is really about manifesting, really starting to put the wheels to the ground to manifest the path ahead. And so because we have our plan, hopefully, from before with Mars, and now we can move forward, when we put Mars and Rahu together, they become like a rocket ship ready to blast off. And so that's kind of the energy we're in right now. And we're seeing it in our own lives. This creates a lot of movement and a lot of busyness and a lot of go, go, go. Because Rahu is more than happy to jump on board with Mars and say, like, sure, let's take off. I got no problem with it. We don't have a plan. Okay, no big deal. Let's just do it. Right? So it can create chaos. Now, does that make sense? And people are feeling it? Yeah. And so those two are now also sitting with Mercury. Mercury is our planet of communication, of connection, of our mind, of our prana, of our breath, right? Of our nervous systems. In Ayurveda, it's connected to Majadhatu, which is more than just the nervous system. But the idea with Mercury is we're just coming out of it being retrograde. So when Mercury goes retrograde, it also kind of creates some shenanigans that we have to deal with. And so I know I've been experiencing that. Have you guys been experiencing that? It's like you just have to have patience and calm when we're in Mercury retrograde, because it's very, like, really things happen. You're like, oh, wow, I really had no clue that was going to happen. So now I just have to reorganize myself and slow down, take some slow, deep breaths, and sort of get focused on what you can do. One of the things with this combination for the month, and we'll go over that when we share the remedies pages, is making sure you are giving yourself enough time and enough space. Does that make sense? So I want to pause for a second. Jennifer, do you have anything to add? And I can also, we can we can go back and share the remedies for these different planets. And I see that there's some things in the chat. I don't seem to be able to access it.
Yeah, so people are sharing in the chat that they experienced some technical difficulties this past week.
Yeah.
Lots of distractions, taking attention away from writing things down, shenanigans. Kelly says she's absolutely feeling that.
Yes.
Yep. And we felt it too. In setting up this webinar, we our sign up form was not working for several days. I tried so many different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, finally it's been working the past few days. So we appreciate your patience as we put this together.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
And even when this morning I went to print out all my beautiful notes, I don't have any ink in my printer. And I was like, I have like 50,000 containers of ink, not the one that I need, the big one. I'm like, oh, okay. We
Yeah.
prepared, we're doing what we could do. So this is Mercury retrograde-ish, even though here's the thing with Mercury retrograde. Yeah, it's technically out of being retrograde, it's moving direct. It's the few days before and after. I always think about a 5-day time period before it moves and after it moves. On either end, before it goes retrograde and when it goes direct again. Those are the most intense moments with Mercury retrograde. So that's because transitions, right? When we think of in Ayurveda, transitions are ruled by Vata, right? Transitions are ruled by ether and air element. It's like everything gets thrown up into the sky and it's like, where am I going? So we just have to sort of, again, ground and say, all right, hold on a minute. I've got a plan here. I can do this. I just need to breathe, put my feet on the ground, take some deep belly breaths, and I can do this. So that's something that has definitely been going on with this Mercury time period that we've been in. And at the same time, Mars moved. There were other astrobabble planetary events that happened. We don't have to go into all of them, but just know that it really has been like a hold on to your hats kind of week in the sky. And so what does that do to us in our bodies and in our minds? It creates sort of that exhaustion and overwhelm and running that we've been experiencing. So I don't know if Jennifer, if you want to share, maybe you can, whatever you want to add to that, but if you want to share the remedies page.
Yeah. Let me
go
pull that
over the
up.
different things with remedies.
Sure.
To.
Yep. Let's see.
And we will send you the prompts that are listed in this. Okay.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Maybe see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Here we go.
Okay. So when we're thinking about Mercury, like we just talked about in Mercury retrograde, we're thinking about the nervous system, we're thinking about our breath, we're thinking about, here's the thing with Mercury. Mercury is a chameleon. Mercury will sort of shapeshift to whoever it is hanging out with. So it's sitting with the malefic planets right now, the baddies. It's sitting with the planets that are like, yeah, a little chaos, that sounds good. Thankfully, Mars and Rahu are, if they are well directed, they can be incredible activists. They can be incredible change makers. They can really help us end old systems that don't serve us and move us into a place of new possibilities. So I don't want to bash them all the time, because I think when you see Rahu and Mars in someone's chart, that person can do anything. And that's what's happening in the sky right now. But they all just moved into this placement. So they're all just kind of like, wait, we're new. Who are you? Hey, nice to meet you, right? They're all just kind of getting to know each other. So we got to give them another minute to sort of settle down. And in order to support ourselves in that, these are some remedies and some things that we can do to do that. So right away, because when we're talking about Mercury, we think about the air, right? We think about the lungs. So it's consciously slowing down. It's being mindful of our breath. I had this idea of, just like setting alarms at the top of the hour for these next few weeks and just having it be your, breathwork break. Now, the number 5, I wrote 5 because 5 is the Vedic numerology connected to Mercury, and I thought that actually makes sense. And when I did that, feet on the ground, 5 deep belly breaths, it really is transformative. It really helps you to drop into your parasympathetic nervous system and really helps you to feel more connected. So that I think that is a remedy that's going to show up again and again and again. And one of the things I just want to say before we move forward is there's a lot of different things we can do to support ourselves. Don't get overwhelmed by this. If you hear something like, oh, that sounds good, jot that down, because that makes sense for you, right? This is where when we're talking about Ayurveda, we're like, okay, here's 50 different things you can do. Pick 3, make it accessible. Don't wear yourself out. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with the idea with the grounding breath work at mealtime, trying not to eat on the go, right? Really being mindful and supportive, like giving yourself like seated time when you're eating and slow time. Which I know Jennifer can talk more about that in terms of the Agni aspect. I wrote down drink bone broth. Bone broth is connected to, if you do, any kind of animal protein, the Maja Dhatu, which is connected to Mercury. Maja is connected to the bone marrow, among other things. And so bone marrow is supportive of grounding and calming. It also is good for gut health, which, when we're thinking about Mercury and like our bellies can feel uncomfortable and things like that, like antsy and stuff and nervous.
Mhm.
Getting into nature, feeding the birds. That is actually a traditional remedy to feeding the birds. You can satisfy all the planets with feeding the birds. It's really wonderful. And there's been, the science backs it up in terms of how songbirds actually calm your nervous system. Yeah. So, Jennifer, do you want to talk about the Ayurvedic pieces with
Yeah.
Mercury and Majadhatu, that what we can do to support our nervous systems and such?
Yeah, definitely. So with Ayurveda, a lot of the remedies for the nervous system, for calming the mind, for maintaining calm, peace, gentleness within yourself. A lot of these things that involve utilizing oil as part of therapies, but there are some contraindications for oil use. So I like to share that with people because these things are not typically found on the internet. If you go search for Ayurvedic daily routine, what you see are, oil pulling, abhyanga, oil massage, and a long list of things that are kind of difficult to do each day. But so self massage, oil massage is often recommended in Ayurveda, but it's really not for everyone. So if there is any indigestion in the body, or if there are allergies going on, seasonal allergies, or if there's any imbalance of kapha dosha, which means there is some watery nose, running eyes, some heaviness, lethargy, weight gain. Any of these imbalances indicate that that oil would actually aggravate the body and mind. So oil's not always recommended. But in people who are experiencing pain and people who are having strong hunger, a good metabolism, and people that are depleted in nature, maybe they have some weight loss or are slightly undernourished. These people will do really well with oil application. And oil application has wonderful benefits. So oil can be used in the form of oil pulling or oil swishing, using warm oil in the mouth and gargling with it or swishing and then spitting it out. This provides really nice support for the muscles of the jaw, and it's strengthening to the gums. It's also protective for the heart. So there's a lot of good benefits from doing oil swishing or oil pulling. And then for people that are utilizing abhyanga or oil massage, self massage, This is a fantastic thing to do. It gives strength to the body. It can calm any aches and pains in the body. It can be, of course, soften the skin, provide suppleness to the body, some flexibility, and ease. And then it has a really nice effect on calming the mind and calming the nervous system. One thing that one remedy that can be utilized by all people, regardless of any contraindications that are present for oil, is nasya. So daily use of nasya, there are actually no contraindications for. So nasya is applying oil to the nose, to the nasal passages. And if you've never done this before, it's good to start small. So what you can do is you can take a clean pinky finger, dip it into some oil. You can use ghee, or you can use sesame oil, or you can use an herbal nasya oil, and you can apply that oil to your nostrils using your little finger. You just want to make sure that your finger is dry when you're dipping it into oil or ghee, so that it doesn't become contaminated. So this is a nice remedy that all people can do. Applying nasya, doing nasya, it lubricates the sinus passages. It calms the mind. It has a lot of wonderful benefits. So nasya is wonderful to do as well.
And that's in the morning, right? Not necessarily in the evening, because it can wake up the mind.
You can do this at any time of the day.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And you had talked when we were talking before about keeping good hygiene, which I also think of as like decluttering in a sense, because Mercury can get overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. And so if we kind of try to keep things in a simple, clean way, that's always helpful. And Mercury retrograde always makes us clean out our cabinets anyway. So maybe we're in that zone as it is. So some prompts that you'll receive via email is, where do I feel rushed? Does this nonstop doing feel good? Are we getting things done? Is it sustainable? Or is it just right now, right? Can I keep it up? It's all about sustainability and accessibility. How can I prioritize grounding and reconnecting? And what ways of thinking, mindset, right, no longer serve me? Because that's the bigger picture of where we are now too with these planetary movements, is we are finally making this pivot towards ending old paths and starting new ones. So if you want to pull up the remedies for Mars, because that is the next thing. Mars and Rahu are, like I was talking about before. So these remedies, the Mercury ones will support Mars and Rahu. The Mars one will support all of them. Same with Rahu. They're all, because they're all together right now, looking at these remedies. Again, the ones that make you go, aha, those are the ones to really focus on for this next month, especially because Mars is here for the next month, really helping us to move forward, but could in the process make us feel a little threadbare if we're pushing too hard and going too fast, right? So some of the remedies, because we talked about what Mars and Rahu are like, those little rascals, writing down your plan, right? We're getting a schedule. One of the best things when we get to Rahu, we'll see one of the best things is being like having a list and just having short time frames to do this in. So if you have your plan, look at your schedule and say, okay, I'm inspired to do that, because this current transit of Mars, it's all in Pisces, and Pisces really needs to feel connected and inspired in order to take action on something. So we're in a new zone, right? This is a new thing. When Mars was hanging out with Saturn, Saturn was like, get the job done, Mars. Come on, let's do this. Make your list, get your chores done. Now Mars is like, whoo, I get a little minute to sort of like dream and see where I want to go and what I want to do. And so this whole idea of like, does it spark joy, right? Does it make you feel connected? Is it motivating you? How much is our ability to move forward connected with just our love of something? I mean, I think it's everything personally, and it might not be for everyone, you know, but this is where we really need to feel that right now. In order to do that, this Mars in Pisces specifically really requires quiet and downtime and time to meditate. So Mars and Pisces the next month, if you're able to schedule and block off time for quiet, for meditation, for anything where you're moving the body, moving the issues out of the tissues, where you're opening up the physical channels and such. This, like down here, it says Mamsa Sapart. Mamsa Dhatu is connected to the muscles in Ayurveda, and other things, the tendons and such. So any kind of movement, massage, yoga, especially walking. Pisces connects to the feet. So this is another thing that's a big one for the next month is walking, because it's also symbolic of where are you walking to? Where are you going? There's been science done on walking and how it actually calms your nervous system, because when you walk, your eyes sort of scan the horizon and scan where you're going. And that movement back and forth of your eyes, which connects to Majadhatu, Mercury, that actually blocks the amygdala in your brain so that you can actually have less of a reactive response to issues and trauma and upset and challenges. So if you're in a place of like, I don't know what I'm doing, what's happening, I got to figure this out, go for a walk. Like, don't go to bed. Don't journaling, yes, but the walking, the movement of your body and the scanning of your eyes, it really helps you to sort of get to a place of release from the anxiety, right? Any kind of receiving body work would be great during this time. One of the things I think is super important right now, because Mars, Rahu, and Mercury are all in Pisces, connecting to the feet, foot massage. I would love everybody to do foot massage every night. Jennifer, do you have any contraindications for that?
For foot massage, well, the same will hold true for oil. So, if there's any indigestion, if there are kapha imbalances, mucus in the body, a cold, a lethargy, then using oil on the feet would be contraindicated. But of course, you can do a dry foot massage. You could
Okay.
also do a powder foot massage. Something like triphala powder would be a nice powder to utilize. You could use chickpea flour, that would also be suitable as well. So this would provide.
Could you use like Mahanarayan oil, which is that red oil that's kind of heated and helps with penetrating into the deeper tissues with any pain and such?
Yeah, Mahanarayan is wonderful to use and great for most people. Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Yeah, the thing that well, one of the things too is, of course there's points on the feet that can help you just help with digestion too, especially along the inside of the foot. Um in terms of the hand, we'll get to that with K2. There's also the connection with the hand, right? Because one of the eclipses, what we'll talk about is connected to the hand. So this foot and hand energy is very strong for this next month, with K2 for the next year, but we'll get into that. Do you want to talk about Agni, the digestive fire, and the
Yeah.
metabolism? Okay.
Yeah. I'll talk about Agni. I first want to mention a few things about movement and exercise.
Okay.
So in Ayurveda, exercise is not really considered exercise unless you are breaking a sweat.
Hmm.
So if you are going for a light stroll, that is really nice and has a lot of benefits to it. But getting to the point of breaking a sweat is going to be excellent for that more kapha body type and for really qualifying as exercise. So that's important. It's also good to exercise on an empty stomach. So if there's food in the belly and you're going to start an exercise routine, you're not going to digest that food properly, and you're going to create metabolic waste in the system. So it's very important that you're on an empty stomach when you go to exercise. And for women that are having their menstrual cycle, exercise should not occur during menses. You can certainly do movement, but you don't want to break a sweat. And that's because the body is in a little bit of a weakened state at that time. And pitta has been really activated. So the body channels are open. And exercise, breaking a sweat is going to aggravate the woman at that time. So best to avoid exercise during menses.
But restorative yoga might be a good thing for that time.
Yeah, excellent, excellent at that time. Yoga Nidra, restorative yoga. Yeah. And as far as Agni goes, everybody has a different metabolism type. So some people will have a slow metabolism, and some people will have a natural fast metabolism. And then for a lot of people, digestion is interrupted and malfunctioning, right? So many people have acid indigestion or a very hot belly, or they're prone to constipation, or they're just not having a regular bowel movement every day. There's so many different imbalances that can occur in the digestive system. So being aware of your metabolism, what you tend towards, and what you need is really important. So if the metabolism is slow, then you can boost that metabolism in certain ways. You can use ginger powder tea. You can use what we call CCF tea, cumin, coriander, and fennel seed tea. It's equal parts of these seeds, cumin, coriander, and fennel, steeped in some hot water. And this is very supportive for digestion.
Mm.
Yeah, also being mindful of, are you hungry? So if you are eating without hunger, you're not going to be able to break down that food. And it's very important that hunger is actually there and is the cue to having a meal or having some food. Snacking throughout the day, or doing emotional eating, these things are going to cause digestive problems.
Mhm.
So regular meals is important. Making sure you're hungry when you eat, and yeah, being mindful of your metabolism. And if hunger is low and you're not finding ways to improve your hunger, then it's time to consult a professional, because hunger is extremely important. And if it's not happening, or it's happening at weird times, not at normal times of the day, perhaps it's happening at night but not during the day, then it's time to consult with a practitioner for support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of Mars prompts for journaling, how am I using, this is also going to be similar to Rahu, so we're going to roll into Rahu in a moment. How am I using my time each day? What paths am I exploring? Am I excited for them, right? That motivation and excitement that Mars and eagerness that Mars brings. Do I have the courage to walk this new road? I think that's kind of a big one for people right now, because especially with Saturn being in Saturn's own sign, Saturn likes things to stay the way they've been, and so we see that change is coming, and, we have to start with ourselves in our own lives and sort of step into these new paths that are presenting in our lives. How's my motivation and drive? How's my patience? Mars is really impatient. So it's, with yourself and with others, this is the time to have a little compassion and grace, to allow yourself space to not know, and space to fumble, and space to sort of explore. And am I connecting my body or neglecting it? If the latter, why, right? What issues could be hiding in the tissues? Sometimes we don't want to move in a certain way or open up a certain part of our body, or we'll hold on to weight because it's protecting us from something that our organs and our tissues are holding on to. I know when I was coaching people through cleanses, when they got stuck at a plateau, I would often say, okay, when was the last time you were at this place in your body where you felt like this? And they would always say, this event happened. It was always like a big event, that some trauma that happened in their lives, that their bodies were like, nope, I can't go any further than this. This is enough. And so that's also, Mars is pretty judgy, so this is where we have to have compassion for ourselves, and push the judgment aside if we are in that space of sort of transforming our beings physically, because it's an energetic thing and it's an emotional thing. It's not just a body thing, right?
Yeah, it's so connected.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also just to comment in terms of yoga poses for Mars, anything that's going to be spinal twists, right? Because all the digestive organs are going to be right around that. And anything that is going to be opening up, like cobra pose or bow pose, or something where you're lifting your heart as well as opening up your digestive organs. Sometimes with those poses, right, we're squeezing the backside of our bodies and the kidneys are there and the kidneys hold on to fear. So it's kind of like squeezing it and letting the blood flow through it to help push out any fears, right? These are all really good for this Mars and Mercury time period that we're in. Okay, Rahu. Okay, so Rahu is the north node of the moon. And we saw a moment ago on the chart that Rahu is the one sitting in sidereal Pisces. It's the only planet that's really been in a water sign for the most part since the end of November. There were other planets that moved quickly, but Rahu is anchoring into Pisces. And Pisces, I think of it as like the gaseous phase of water, right? It's about transcendence. It's about connecting. It's about merging with the higher self. And so this Rahu in Pisces time period, I really have high hopes for it, honestly, because I think we can really make changes in our lives and in our world. The eclipse forecast I wrote back in November might be really helpful to read, and the Rahu movement in November, and the recent eclipse forecast, April 8th one, might be really helpful to read, because that will go into this more. And so the idea with Rahu is it's the north node of the moon. It's our karmic highway. It's the direction we're going in life. It's one of these planetary energies. It doesn't have a body, right? A planetary body, because it's a node of the moon, but it has this like invisible influence on us that is sometimes hard to explain. When we're pulled inexplicably to something, we're like, I just have to go on that path. That's Rahu at play. Right? Rahu is, I always, when I talk about it in people's readings, I call it, like your karmic dragon. It's like, here you go, jump on board, see if you can get yourself strapped in, get anchored in, get really deep in your core and ride that dragon with grace and with calm so that you can actually navigate it well with wisdom. Because when Rahu shows up in the sky prominently, like it is right now with the eclipses, like it is right now this month, especially because it's sitting with Mars and Mercury, we have to really, again, put those blinders on it a little bit so that we can get things done. And because when we do that, Rahu can be chaotic and wild and crazy and want to do its own thing. But when we anchor it just a little bit, it can do amazing things, and it can do amazingly, like really bring about major change in the world and in our lives. The key is to not overschedule it and to not strap it down with, with things it has to do, like it's in a straitjacket, then Rahu will be like, peace out, I'm gone, I'm not doing this anymore. So we have to find, the thing I was thinking about this time is, it is equally as important to schedule our doctor's appointments and our hangouts with our friends and our work as it is to schedule our free time and our play time and our brainstorming, not having to do anything time. That's this month especially. This month especially is like that, because when Rahu is given freedom and trust, it can go off and find the golden nuggets in the universe and be like, look what I found. This is for you, So we just have to give it that trust in itself and in ourselves that we're going to come back home. And so that's where how to come home with Rahu. That's the big deal with Rahu is Rahu, it can go out into the universe and be like, gone, I'm out of here. It can get lost in the endless scroll, right? Rahu is ether element in Ayurveda, space. So, it goes into outer space really quickly. So it just has to know how to come back home. One of my friends is on this call, Denise, and she's always talking about the 22-minute timers. And I'm like, that is it. That is the Rahu thing. When you are in a Rahu time period and it's prominent in the sky for all of us, like it is this month, set timers. 22 minutes, 25 minutes is actually called the Pomodoro technique. If you do a 25-minute timer, 22-minute timer, it helps you get focused, put those little blinders on Rahu's face and go do it. Get this done now. Just here's my list. Pick one, go for it. Get it done, boom. It's like one of the most beautiful life hacks. I get messages all the time from clients saying, wow, the timer thing is like life-changing. That is what we should all be doing this time. Taking the breaks, like I mentioned, prioritizing meditation, right? The specific Vedic sign that Rahu is in right now, it's a degree of Pisces called Revati. It's absolutely beautiful and kind and gentle, and it really needs meditation and visualization. It needs that so that it can sort of release from the attachments of the day, and it can also start to move forward in its life in a way that feels more anchored into spirit and self. Um, what else? Um,
This reminds me of, I just want to interject. This
yes.
reminds me a little bit of just the coming back to balance with Ayurveda. So finding that that body constitution that we're born with, and um,
Yes.
and yeah, managing the doshas so that we're in harmony with ourselves, and not, dealing with symptoms of imbalance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because Rahu connects to ether element space, right? The things that we talked about with Mercury, a lot of those are written down here too, right? A lot of those remedies. I don't have to go over them again, but it's about filling the space. It's about nourishing and moisturizing the space so that we don't dry out,
Hmm.
because dryness creates separation. In Ayurveda, you can't take two pieces of paper and they move separately. You put some oil on them and they stick together, right? So
Hmm.
this is where Rahu really likes oils and incense because of the smokiness. Rahu likes smoky things, but it's protective, it's grounding. The word in Sanskrit for oil is sneha, and sneha also means love. So this whole idea of if we're able to bring oils into our lives, it really helps to ground and protect us and bring us back to center, and support bring us a coating of love.
Hmm.
So with this eclipse that we just had, um, on the 8th specifically, it's a big one. That the eclipse, when eclipses happen, they shine like a superpowered spotlight on an area of the sky in our world, in our personal lives. And it says, look at this. This is your focus on another level, an unseen level, right, for the next 6 months. And it can be very powerful if it actually connects to a planet in your birth chart. So some people might be feeling this more than others. The thing with this particular solar eclipse on April 8th, was it was in Pisces in Revati, that sign that has to do with paths and journeys, understanding that the journey we're walking in this life happens on multiple levels, and that one expression of a journey, whether we're on a road trip with some friends or we're going to a yoga seminar over the weekend or something, that also brings in other levels of journeying, spiritual, emotional, mental, right? This whole idea of union is what's really important right now with these eclipses, is how do we unify within ourselves? How can we walk this path, and where do we want to go? Right? So what's the vision? What are you envisioning for yourself um over the next year, but especially over the next 6 months with this particular one? What steps can you take this month to help your vision get closer to your vision? And again, back to the same things. Are you scheduling time to just, that may look like I'm just playing around, but that's when some of the deepest discoveries happen, right? Is there anything you want to add to that, Jennifer?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, what comes to mind for me is just, being as healthy as you can be so that you can
Yeah,
make use of these tools. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And K2 is its counterpart, right? The north and south node of the moon. K2 is our south node, our past life gifts, the things that we come into life just having a knack for, the things that we're good at and we don't know why. It's the things that we sort of worked on in our past lives. In this lifetime, we just need to remember them. And so, because this one's interesting. The south node of the moon, K2, was in a degree of Virgo called Hasta, the hand. That's what it means in Sanskrit. Hasta is beautiful, beautiful sign. It has a really beautiful left-right brain connection and balance. It has strong intuition, but it knows its stuff. But it's also connected to hands-on modalities. This eclipse on March 25th and the coming up eclipse, I believe it's October 2nd, they're both in Hasta. That's unusual that it sort of is the same sign for two eclipses. And so the influence of this is going to be for the next year. All the stuff we talked about, hands-on modalities, massage, marmotherapy, cranial sacral, whatever hands-on modalities draws you in, self-massage, whatever you can do, any kind of grounding, healing touch you're drawn to, stick with that, right? Um, it's connected to, because this degree of Virgo, sidereal Virgo, is ruled by Mercury and the moon, it's the heart and mind, right? So there's this idea of connecting the heart and mind. In Ayurveda, we say the seat of the mind is in the heart. And so all the things we talked about with Mercury will resonate with this, but also the moon, right, is connected to Rasa Dhatu, R-A-S-A. Rasa Dhatu is, among other things, the lymphatic system. And so this is where any kind of lymphatic massage or drainage, something where you can move, the lymph, you have to move the lymph to make it move. Otherwise, it gets stuck and congested. So all the things we've been talking about really show up in this K2 thing that's going to be prominent for the next year, saying, yeah, you've got to like do self-care. You have to actually honor the body, right? It's in Virgo. Virgo is a very embodied sign, and it's the mutable earth, right? Virgo connects to the digestive system. So it's like, what are you digesting? What are you assimilating? What are you pulling in? What's actually nourishing you? Your heart and mind, right? Your nervous system and your lymphatic system, what's actually supporting you. And again, the hand and foot massages are great for this if you're able to do them. And the prompts would be, how committed am I to myself for my self-care? And if we're not, go there deeper, find out why. And because K2 brings up things from the past, K2 is like, hey, you did something before, that worked well, bring it back, right? So if you're able to think of the things that you accessed in the past that for now, that's also something to do for the next year, right? This is a prominent player for the next year. And also, again, because it has to do with, K2 is like the mystic and the magician, right? It's the intuitive stuff. It's the fog and the haze that we're sort of like closing our eyes and navigating through with trust. So this is where are you drawn to intuitively? And this, is it something from your past? Is it something that you've sort of, pushed aside for some reason because maybe you lacked some sort of doubt in your, had doubt in yourself? Yeah. Is there anything you want to add to that, Jennifer?
Yeah, so with the lymphatic system and with nourishment, it's important too to make sure that we're not overnourishing and that we're balancing our nourishment with exercise and movement, because these things will keep that lymph or keep that rasa moving properly in the body and not getting stagnated. So being mindful of stopping eating when we're full, and eating with mindfulness, which is a challenge for so many people.
Totally.
Yeah, so I would suggest sitting down at the dinner table, eating and spending some meals in silence if you can. Some people can do this, maybe not all, but yeah, just being mindful of that food and what you're putting into yourself, and how you're counteracting that with exercise. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we're going over a little bit than the hour that we had allotted. We're gonna talk about Jupiter and the moon, because there's some interesting stuff with the moon. So we should be wrapping up soon. So Jupiter is one of the big stories, planetary stories of the year. This is the thing that I was like, wait till May, just wait till May. Things are gonna start to even out a little better. So Jupiter is moving. It takes about a year to go through each sign. It's moving May 1st, 2024 through May 14th, 2025. Jupiter is, in Sanskrit, it's Guru, G-U-R-U, right? Guru in Sanskrit means, obviously it's a guru, but it means bringing from darkness to light. And it means heavy. One of the qualities of Ayurveda is heaviness, right? And Jupiter means heavy. Guru means heavy. And so the idea of this responsibility, in a sense, that comes with Jupiter, because Jupiter is the ethical one, it's the philosopher, it's the spiritual one, it's the teacher, the mentor, the guide, the one that we look to and say, I have this ideal and I want to go there. It's lifting your gaze to the horizon and saying, that's the thing I'm going to do next, with enthusiasm and with joy, right? That's Jupiter's shtick. So Jupiter is always, when Jupiter moves, we get to see where we're drawn for expansion, where we're drawn for doing more of, right? Because Jupiter likes to get bigger. It brings us abundance and possibilities and opportunities. Jupiter can also get a little too big for its britches, right? Jupiter can also make us overextend and say, I got this, I can do everything. And then it can sort of, what can happen with Jupiter, because it's connected to Kapha dosha, and Ayurveda Kapha is weight, adipose tissue. Jupiter is that, right? Is that too. So it's water and earth elements. It can slow us down if we're going too fast, too far, too running ourselves ragged. Jupiter and Kapha comes in and is like, okay, you need to slow down. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it difficult for you to move forward. So if, again, having compassion and a deeper understanding of, why is this happening right now, rather than the things society sort of tells us. Jupiter loves sweet things and fatty foods, and so erring on the side of healthy fats and naturally sweet foods will be very grounding and nourishing for Jupiter. In terms of this Jupiter movement into sidereal Taurus, Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus is about property and money and stuff. It's like wants things to be solid, right? So Jupiter moving is going to really support us in slowing down, looking at our finances, looking at our investments, looking at our property, looking at our bodies and where we feel strong in our core, right? In our homes, right? And then, what can we do to support ourselves to build upon that? Because Jupiter wants it to get bigger and better in a sense. Because Jupiter moving into Taurus, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So it pulls in these beautiful, sweet planets. I always think Venus and Jupiter and Taurus is like, like cuddly, cozy, just being really comfortable and stuff. So the downside of this is all the movement that Jennifer's been mentioning, right? And that we've been talking about. Jupiter and Taurus is like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And because Jupiter is ruled by Venus, these two are the benefic planets. This is, I feel like if you sent Jupiter and Venus together to go to the gym and work out, they would end up at the cafe, like eating croissants all day long. It's like, so you have to, with this placement, get an accountability partner, get somebody, if that speaks to you, those ways of like, maybe not showing up at the gym because, oh, whoops, I had to meet my friend for coffee. And instead, that was so much better for my personal growth and development. Like, I get it. But if that is you and you want to sort of keep your body moving and flowing, sign up for a class, get a personal trainer, get a friend who is going to hold you accountable, check in with you, and be a good partner to you, because that's what Jupiter needs. Jupiter in Taurus wants a partner who is solid, stable, and capable of encouraging us to become better, right? Because that's kind of what Jupiter wants, is like, how do we like do more within ourselves in terms of our personal development?
Mm-hmm. I
So,
think that the word that you mentioned to me that is key here is enthusiasm. So
yeah,
in Ayurveda, enthusiasm is an indicator that there's good health. So you should have enthusiasm after your meals. You should have enthusiasm to return to your work, return to what you were doing. And when you wake up in the morning, are you feeling groggy? Are you lingering around in bed? Or are you waking up with enthusiasm and ready to go to tackle the day?
that's
So these,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, these are good ways to know, like, is my kapha in check? Is the heaviness of me, of my being, is it not too heavy?
Right.
So look for that enthusiasm.
Yeah. And part of the ways we can do that is back to the things we've talked about already. Mars supporting Agni, right? Making sure that we're digesting and assimilating everything that's going into our systems, right? Into our bodies with physical, like food, but also the world, right? Agni, digestive fire, metabolism is not just metabolizing the food, it's metabolizing all of our experiences.
Mhm.
And Kapha in Ayurveda, Jupiter is protective. It's a hugging energetic. So it just wants you to be safe and happy and supported. I think of Jupiter as like, honey, you can do anything, right? That's what Jupiter would say. Saturn would be like, prove it to me. show me your plan. And Jupiter's, yeah, or Jupiter is like the happy gardener with a basket full of seeds, throwing them all around and giving us all these possibilities. And Saturn comes along and is like, okay, thank you. I'm going to do this, this, and this, because that's what I can do. So Jupiter is about possibilities, right? And so making sure we're not overextending is tricky. Thankfully, in Taurus, it does want to come back home. So I think this could be an interesting time period for people in terms of feeling a little more rooted and grounded. One of the recommendations is visualization meditations are really excellent for Jupiter and Taurus. I posted one for the recent moon in Swati, a degree of Libra that we just had. And we can send it out when we send our email of this out to everybody. And because, again, similar energy, a lot of this energy is similar, right? So where do I see myself in the next year? And who will help me along the way? And who can I help along the way? Right? Because Jupiter is the guide and the guru, whether we receive that or whether we give that. And what teachers, classes, mentors, travels, all these things, experiences will help me to find rooting in myself so I'm capable of going the distance. That to me is kind of like the nutshell of this connection. And because Jupiter is ethical, you know, this is a time to really like check out our ethics and if we're feeling connected.
Mhm.
Okay. And so the moon is doing some interesting things in May. So the reason being, there is what's called okay, we've got the new moon and the full moon always, right? And those moons on May 7th and May 23rd are really, again, very much in line with the things we've been talking about. There's this birthing energy going on with the new moon. What seeds are we planting? What paths are we, you know, hoping to flower into? The full moon is in a degree of Scorpio called Anuradha, the friendship star, following Radha, it means. And it's about manifestation, but the symbol is so beautiful. It's the lotus blossom. And so it's about having patience and perseverance and saying, I am well rooted in this pond, in this muck. There's darkness around me, but I'm going to keep pushing and striving to flower into this beautiful lotus blossom. And so this is where those moons are really beautiful for us to keep going for this month and recognize, you know, where are we? What seems murky? What seems unclear? What do we need to let go of, you know, so we can grow? And what's in the process of birthing now? It's not easy, right? I feel like that's something that I've been having conversations with everybody about, is like people are in a really, more so than other times, in a place of process and birthing. Does that resonate?
It does, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and with the moons, from the Ayurvedic perspective, the full moon gives us a lot of energy and support, especially to the body physically. And the new moon is a time when there's some depletion happening. So, in particular for women, women who are menstruating, and even if you've completed your menstrual cycle, these cycles will still have an impact on you. So, menstruating on the full moon, paying attention to where the moon is in the sky, so that your body becomes aware of these cycles, and your menstrual cycle can actually, just through doing this simple practice of being aware of where the moon is, can start to line up with the full moon. So that during this time when you're having your monthly bleed, um, you can get that extra support from the full moon.
That's beautiful. That really leads us right into the other thing that the moon is doing that I mentioned a moment ago. If you want to scroll down, I think there's information down there about, is there? There's not?
No, I don't see anything more.
Okay, well, there are I was talking before about the unsupported moon. So I can go back to the calendar if you want, or the chart, so you can see it, how the moon is, or can we just leave this here? The moon is sort of outside of all those planets that are clustered up, and the moon is traveling on its own. When it's unsupported, it means it doesn't have any planets on either side of it, which act as like protection and anchoring. So when the moon is unsupported, as it has been quite a bit this last month, 2 months, it's going to be May 12th through 14 unsupported, and May 22nd through 27th. So when it's unsupported, like I said before, we can feel like we're people don't get us or see us, and it just feels a little harder to sort of do what we want to do. Thankfully, that's where these moons are really helpful. It's like you just got to keep plugging away. And you just, Jupiter and Taurus, find a solid person to talk to, find an accountability partner. The moon in Anuradha, the friend, find a good friend, right? When we have an unsupported moon in the sky, it's really helpful to make that extra effort to actually reach out to somebody and put yourself in what can feel like a very emotionally vulnerable place, that is, that is like sharing that you're like feeling off or feeling unsupported or feeling like people don't get, so it's this whole idea of putting yourself in a place where you can receive love and support. That's what the unsupported moon is asking of us. And it's going to be showing up for, that's a third of the month that it's happening in May. And it'll decrease in the amount of time, the length of time, as we move the other planets forward. It'll get closer to the moon as the moon moves through the sky. But for right now, it's a chunk of time. So making sure that you've got your people, you've got your connections is really helpful. There's on my website, I've got a remedies page, and that has things that you can do for the moon. So what Jennifer was talking about like just being aware of the moon phases, that's perfect, right? A lot of the things that we talked about before, this nourishing, grounding, those are all things that are supportive of the moon. Some of the things that are supporting Jupiter right now will also be supportive of an unsupported moon, because again, it's like rooting and grounding and being in a place where you feel loved and supported. Now, the good thing that's happening this month is we have what's called, it's an auspicious day called Ashkaya Tritaya. And it's a special day where the sun and moon, the luminaries in the sky, are exalted. So the sun, this is going to be on the 10th of May. And so it is where the sun is in sidereal Aries and the moon is in sidereal Taurus. Those placements of the sun, our self, our soul in Aries, it really likes to be in that sign. The moon, our heart, our mind, our emotions, really likes to be in Taurus, right? So the sun and the moon are in those special signs. And the idea with this is May 10th is supposed to be a day that is very auspicious. It's a good time to, generally speaking, of course, we want to look at our charts for this, but they say that, any sort of challenges are sort of wiped away, because it's just a day that you can access like these higher vibrations and receive a lot of support. So that is, that's exciting. And it's exciting because, especially because of what the moon is doing, and especially because it's right after the new moon and after all of these things we've been experiencing of like, okay, this new path. So it'll give people like the oomph to keep going and to move forward.
It's so important that we're, in touch with the celestial bodies, that we know what's going on around us, right? Yeah, just they have such an impact on us, and it kind of blows my mind. When I first started studying Ayurveda, I was really struck by how simple substances can have an impact on us. How,
Yeah.
if you have ice cream, how that has certain qualities to it, and you ingest that ice cream and you take in those qualities. Well, the planets are really no different, right? They
Yeah.
each have their own qualities, and when they're having these movements in the sky and they come closer to, in closer proximity to us, or however they move,
Mhm.
they have their impact because their qualities are powerful.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, Mercury retrograde is one right away. It's like, that's the one that we go to. It's like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
So it's about how we respond, right?
Hmm.
Because if we're untethered, uncentered, ungrounded, we can react. And so remedies are supposed to help us respond in a way that feels more centered and grounded, but also to, this is where like these three sister sciences, when we're looking at Ayurveda and yoga and Vedic astrology, Jyotish, right? This whole idea of it's about harmonizing the being, and we can use any one of them to support us along our path. And each one of them has ways to support the other, right?
Hmm.
So like we can look at the sky and say, oh, wow, there's a lot of as we were experiencing a lot of vata and pitta, a lot of energy and movement and excitement and go, 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 but also not necessarily the earth element where things can hit the ground and we feel like we're moving forward. So that's where we can try to bring in grounding yoga practices. We can try to bring in grounding, you know, like diet and lifestyle things, right? We can connect with planets in different ways that are going to help them to sort of, you know, move through us with ease, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Should we take some questions?
sure.
Would anybody like to let me stop sharing the screen.
Okay. And thank you for sticking with us as we went over a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself if you have some questions.
Do you feel okay? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like you do you get what's kind of going on? I know it's a lot because we talked about a lot of planets, and I think one of the things to sort of keep in mind is while they're doing their own things, there's a general sort of sense of they're doing a similar thing, right? Helping us move on our path. Okay, let's see some questions. Okay, thank you, Reed. Is it a good time to make major decisions? So, oh, is it not a good time to make major decisions? This is where it's always, we always want to look at your own chart. I think when we're looking at Mercury retrograde, it's always good to say, okay, hold on a minute. This is what I've been thinking about. If it's coming up again, then wait till after Mercury's done with its retrograde cycle to make the decision. I think that sometimes with life, we just have to make decisions, whether the planets are helping us out or not, you know? So if we're able to do that from a place of grounded calm, that we've really taken the time to meditate on it, to talk about it, to work through it, and to feel like, does this feel right? Is this going to further me in the direction that I want to go? Is this going to help the greater good? Yeah, that's a good question though. When planets move, there's instability. So they've just moved this last week and the week before. They were doing some fun stuff, you know? So now that they're kind of getting settled and they're like, okay, a little easier to make decisions, I think. Thank you, Alida. Anybody else have a question? All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Oh, wait. Oh, thank you. Thank you too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
patience with us, with
Yeah.
our sign up form and
Oh yeah, and we'll have a Google Doc maybe that you can, if you want to fill that out, and just that we'll send to you that has, you know, you can give us feedback if there's more things you want to see us talk about, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.